Welcome to Invincible Career. I'm Larry Cornett. So I wanted to start out talking a little bit about why I call this Invincible Career. I believe that sooner or later, we all become vulnerable in our careers. The reality is that the majority of us are always vulnerable, even if we don't realize it, even if we don't want to admit that to ourselves. Eventually, though, something does happen that wakes you up to that fact. The reality is, if your primary source of income is from one job and you have a single boss who controls your fate, you are vulnerable. If your cost of living is such that you heavily depend on that single source of income to survive, sometimes paycheck to paycheck, more people than you would ever expect are surviving paycheck to paycheck. If that's true, you are vulnerable. If your industry collapsed and you have no financial cushion to survive as you rebuild your career and you have to change professions, you are vulnerable. If age discrimination makes it harder and harder to find employment in your chosen profession, you become increasingly vulnerable with every passing year. So, what do I mean by an invincible career? It means that, well, as much as possible, you have removed single points of failure from every aspect of your overall career ecosystem. No single event can disrupt your life for very long. In fact, you may even become stronger as you are exposed to adversity and failure. You bounce back from any setback wiser, tougher, and more prepared for what comes your way. Nassim Nicholas Taleb often refers to this as being anti-fragile. If you've read his book, it's called Anti-Fragile, Things That Gain from Disorder. Before you can forge your own invincible career, you need to understand your existing and potential areas of vulnerability. You can then make a plan to eliminate those points of vulnerability, or at least mitigate them somewhat, to give you the confidence required to make the best decisions for your career and for your life. This is the process that many of my clients work through when they're in my Career Accelerator. So in general, the primary benefit, the biggest benefit of having an invincible career is that you get to work and live your life on your own terms. You no longer live in fear of upsetting your boss or losing your job. Your work is aligned with your personal values, and it leverages your core talents and strengths. You feel like you're truly utilizing the best of what you can do, the best of your abilities. Now, the positive ripple effects of living this way are enormous. It has far-reaching impact. I mean, I can't even begin to capture all of the ways that your life might change when you start to live this way. But I've tried to summarize that in terms of what it means to live an invincible life, to have an invincible career, in terms of 10 core principles. So the first and probably the most important is that you get to live where you will truly enjoy your quality of life. You choose where you live. This isn't determined by your job or by your profession. The second is that you work where you want to spend your days. So you are working every day somewhere that you would want to be. You're not commuting to a location that you can't stand and feeling frustrated by where your workplace is located. The third is that you become an expert at what you do for a living. And this is really important. If you're going to have an invincible career, you have to become really good at what you do. The fourth, which I've found becomes really important as you get farther along in your career, is you have to transform your work to be meaningful and satisfying. You want to feel like what you do every day matters. The fifth is important too, and that's important to all of us, is that you take control of how you want to do your work. There's nothing more demoralizing than someone telling you how to do your job. When you have an invincible career, you decide how you do your work. The sixth one is important. It takes a little bit of time to get here, but you work when you want and as much as you want. And I know this isn't going to happen when you're first starting out in your career. I certainly worked way too many hours for way too many years. But at some point, when you take control of your career, you get to decide how you're working and when you're working, how much you're working. The seventh one, which I'm sure will resonate with all of you, is that you work with people who bring out the best in you. This includes your boss, your coworkers. You don't feel like you're working with people that make you feel terrible every day or a toxic boss. You choose who you're working with, and they bring out the best in you. The eighth is that you start to achieve a feeling of fulfillment when you're leveraging your expertise to help others. And this does come, for some of you, it comes really early in your career. For some of us, it comes a little bit later in our career where we really want to give back. We want to help other people. We want to use everything that we've learned, all of our expertise, to help other people be successful and happy. The ninth is that you take charge of your career and you never again feel trapped. You never again feel trapped in a situation where you can't see how you can escape. You own your career path, and you're always faced with amazing opportunities and options. And the 10th and final is that you empower yourself to never again feel vulnerable. When you have an invincible career, you know how good you are. You know your worth. Other people know your worth. You don't have to put up with anything that you may have put up with earlier in your career. You no longer feel vulnerable because you know you will always have opportunities. You know you can always find a job or start your own business. None of this is going to happen overnight. This does take time. Even if you're just starting out in your career and you've already adopted some of this philosophy, it takes years to build up the expertise, the network, the connections, and to make a plan and put it into motion. It takes time. And if you haven't been living this way for your entire career, like many of us, then it's going to take time to change course and make it something completely different than what you've been doing before. Invincible career doesn't happen overnight. But if you start today, you will be on the path to achieving it.